It's Macy's one-day sale tomorrow with deals of the day for everyone on your gift list. Like 60 to 70% off coats for him and her. The perfect winter boots, booties, and more, 40 to 50% off. And snuggle up with festive comforter sets, just $19.99. Plus, everyone gets $10 Macy's money for every $50 spent. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply. See Macy's.com/Macy's money for details.
Writer Kate Michaels has a new project and an enigmatic new collaborator.
There's been murders in my neighborhood.
Sometimes there's a thin line between fact and fiction.
Who is it? FBI.
Please help. Ma'am, can you give me your address?
Kate Mara and Adam Scott in Ghostwriter, a new one-episode feature-length podcast movie experience from C13 Features.
Ghostwriter is available now on the Odyssey app and wherever you find your podcasts.
So last night at midnight, or around there, whatever, after a flurry of transactions the last couple of days, Rob Manfred, the awful commissioner of Major League Baseball, announced that that the league would be locking out the players.
Yes.
Which I understand why they're doing it, because they didn't have to do it yesterday. They're doing it as a leverage point, because if they don't lock them out and they don't come to an agreement before the season, then the players could strike at any time, and then the players would have, that's what they did in 94, 95. So I understand it from that perspective. Now, listen, I can't blame 100% on the owners, because when it's a battle of greed, and that's what this is, it's not about the fans. Both sides will tell you it's about making the game better for the fans. If that were the case, they would have figured this out, because this has been coming for 2 years. We saw the prelude of this when the owners basically locked out the players during the heart of the pandemic. Remember that?
I do remember that.
They should have started a month before they did, but they couldn't come to an agreement then. The sides hate each other. There's huge distrust. Now, I almost always side with the players. You know that. I'm a big union guy. I believe in unions for the most part. They work. They've saved workers in this country, and they're under attack. Now, the baseball players union, is not the same as most unions, but it's still a union. So I believe in. I understand what the players are fighting for here.
What are they fighting for? Like, explain to me why this lockout has occurred.
There's a million different things, but quite simply, it's all about the piece of the pie, and the players feel like in the last two negotiations, they have been screwed by the owners, and they're getting taken advantage of, right? The average salary in baseball has actually gone down the last couple of years. The superstars are still making a ton of money, but the rank-and-file player is making less than they were making a few years ago. And in a sport that's an $8 billion industry, some people are not big baseball fans. I get it. You may think, baseball's dying, it's this and that, and maybe it will die someday. It's still bigger than 95% of the sports in the world. And it's still making a ton of money in TV ratings, on a local level. Maybe not, they're still making money on a national level, but on a local level, a lot of their TV markets do huge, even here, including here in Cleveland, right? Where they have much better TV ratings than they are in attendance. So what it comes down to is the players feel like that the owners, that more than ever, owners are not competing to win. That too many teams are not competing. They're not trying. They're not spending money. And that there's only a handful of teams that are spending money. That's one part of the problem. Number two, the players feel like it takes them too long to get to free agency, right? You have to wait 6 years of service time. But now the general manager / owners have been manipulating that to really make it more like 7 years. That's been a big problem over the last decade. So players in general are getting to free agency later and later, and teams, unlike in the steroid era, are not spending as big on 30-year-old players as they used to. So the young 20-year-olds are getting screwed because they're great, but they haven't even hit arbitration yet. And now by the time they get to free agency, if they don't get to free agency until their 30s, which some guys don't, then nobody wants to pay him then because you're like, well, your best years are behind you. I'm not going to pay you.
Sure.
And a lot of players are getting screwed outside the top 1% of players. So they're angry about that. They don't like the draft pick compensation. They don't like the way the draft works. They want to force. They don't like the tanking in the game. So there's a lot of things they don't like. That's not even including some of the rules issues that they have to deal with going forward. The owners, they don't want anything to change because they've kicked the players' ass in the last 2 negotiations.
Right.
Everything's going their way. They control it all. They're not looking, they're not. And all the things the owners keep offering don't benefit the players. And what drives me most crazy, now listen, the players are not complete saints here. I've got an issue with them to a lesser degree than the owners, but I got an issue with them too because I don't know how much the superstars really care about the rank and file player. That's always an issue in every sport. We'll see. We'll see if the superstar players are willing to go to the mat for the rank and file player in baseball to get this done. I think baseball does need an overhaul to make the sport better. I think there's a lot of problems in the game, and I think we do need competitive balance. But I don't agree with the way the owners want to do it. I don't agree with what the players want to do either. I think they're both wrong. I think they need to find a compromise in the middle, and right now neither side has been willing to do that. Now, again, I think it needs to lean more towards the players' side. I want to go closer to the player side, not all the way to where they are on some of these negotiations. But the commissioner wants to give you this nonsense that our small market teams already can't afford to compete. That is total garbage. It's garbage. They're unwilling to spend money. And the solution, or one of the solutions, obviously it's very complicated, but the solution is everybody's obsessed with a salary cap. I don't think that's the answer. Baseball has a soft salary cap. Only one team, the Dodgers, went over it last year. That was it. You look at all the money that's been spent here in the last couple of weeks. It hasn't been the Dodgers. They did sign one player to a $60 million contract. It hasn't been the Yankees. They haven't done anything. The Cubs hadn't done anything, although they signed one player to decent money yesterday. But they're not the teams making the big splashes. Not, the Phillies. They haven't done anything. A lot of these now the Mets have. But most of the big market teams, it's been teams out of left field. The Rangers have spent a lot here. The Marlins have spent a lot here. The Twins just extended Byron Buxton to a big contract. The Mariners have spent here big. So teams that you're not used to spending big are the ones that have kind of done it here recently. Texas Rangers, I know it's technically a big market, but they've never
They don't really spend money that often.
No.
Not recently.
And they've spent huge money here this last week. These teams can afford it. They're all full of baloney. The owners are full of crap. They don't want to share the money any more than they do. And I get it. You to some degree, you're a billionaire for a reason. You're greedy. The players are somewhat greedy. The owners are completely greedy. And here's what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear from the commissioner. I don't want to hear from Tony Clark of the Players Union. I am not interested in what any of them has to say. It's all propaganda. The commissioner says, well, we made the players a proposal yesterday, and had they accepted it, we would not have had this lockout. Well, your proposal sucked. It didn't benefit the players at all. You've got to fix the problem. And the problem is that teams like right here in Cleveland don't spend enough money. That doesn't mean you can't compete because the Rays and the Indians to some degree, well, I shouldn't say to some degree, they have, but the Indians' payroll was a little higher during their run when they went to the World Series. But you've got to force these teams to spend. And if the owner really can't afford it, then find an owner who can. There's plenty of billionaires in America that can afford a baseball team. I'm sure it would not be hard to find a new owner for the Rays or the Guardians or the A's if those owners really, truly, which I don't believe, couldn't afford to have a minimum of $100 million payroll. I think it should be higher. But at minimum, no team in Major League Baseball should have a payroll of under $100 million. That's a complete joke. That would make a huge difference. We need to come up with some way to prevent tanking in Major League Baseball. It's bad for the game. It's bad for the fan base. Baseball, much more than basketball and football, is a regional sport. It's very popular in some markets. Fortunately for them, and the reason baseball does well is that in the big cities in America, baseball is still really popular. That's what saves it. But because it's a regional market and people don't care about players on other teams like they do in basketball and football, it hurts the sport, and that's got to be fixed. You got to find a way to create more buzz for the game, whether it's the draft, free agency, trade season. You've got to force the bottom teams to spend more. You have to. That's how you fix it. And then there's rules that got to be changed on the field. We need a pitch clock. We need the DH in the National League, which is definitely going to happen. That will happen whenever they resolve this. But I will not listen to Rob Manfred's propaganda, and I will not listen to Tony Clark's propaganda. I'm sick of hearing from both of them. They are both full of absolute crap. Neither side cares about the fans. Neither side cares about the fans. They only care about their body. Again, let me make it clear, I'm very pro-union on this. I think the owners are a much bigger culprit than the players, but the players don't get out without some blame. They get some blame for this. The owners get the majority of it, in my opinion. The owners do not care about the fans. They only care. They're never honest. Why do we have no idea how much money they're making? If they're going to cry poor, tell us how much money
Open
you
the books,
make.
right?
Let's go. Taxpayers are paying for the stadiums. We're buying tickets. We're doing all this. Show us how much. If you really want to say, if you really want fans to say, yeah, I guess the Indians can't have, or the Guardians can't have more than a $50 million payroll, then prove it. They won't do that.
No.
Yeah. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. It's an absolute disgrace. The greed in this situation. The country is it's just, things are just lousy. They've been lousy for 4 or 5 years here. Things have been bad. They're ugly. Everybody hates each other more than ever, it seems like. And so many people.
It's certainly not a good look, right?
So many people are struggling, and it just looks so awful to have it work. And again, if they don't miss any games, it's no big deal. Everybody around baseball seems to think this is going to get settled before the season. I hope they're right, because I don't see it. I think both sides hate each other. I think both sides are dug in. I do not think the players are going to cave. I know in other sports they sometimes do. And recently, baseball players used to never cave. They have recently. The players want to get rid of some of the revenue sharing, which I think is a bad idea. That's the one I disagree with them on. However, I think if there is revenue sharing, that the teams that get it, like the Guardians, should be forced to spend it on the roster. That's what you do. Don't get rid of the revenue sharing. Force the teams that get it to spend it on payroll.
Adam, you think will we miss spring training because of this?
Yes. Oh, I'd say my guess is almost definitely 90%.
Yeah. Wow.
I think they might miss games, and I think now in the end they have to fix the sport. So even if they miss games, if they ultimately get it right and fix the sport, I think it will actually be worth it. But I don't know if they're going to do it. Both sides are pretty dug in here. Everything the players ask for, the owners think is outrageous. The owners' latest proposal is ridiculous. And no 7 playoff teams, 6. Go up to 6, not 7. I don't know. The owners can't. The owners allegedly proposed the salary floor, but it wouldn't be a hard salary floor. So what's the point? If teams can get away with not reaching the floor, then it's not a floor.
I'm Erin Ryan, political commentator, comedy writer, and host of Crooked Media's Hysteria.
And I'm co-host Alyssa Mastromonaco, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff for President Obama.
Each week on Hysteria, we are joined by a team of hilariously opinionated ladies to discuss the headlines from the serious to the absurd.
We cover everything from reproductive rights to rom-coms and break down the political news of the week and cultural stories that affect women's lives.
New episodes of Hysteria drop every Thursday. Listen on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's Macy's one-day sale tomorrow with deals of the day to wrap up your holiday shopping. Like 40% off fresh fragrances from Juicy Couture, Michael Kors, and more. Give the gift of sparkle with 60% off diamond bracelets, pendants, and rings, and 50 to 60% off designer suits and blazers. Plus, everyone gets $10 Macy's money for every $50 spent. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply. See Macy's.com/Macy's money for details.
Man, there are a lot of podcasts out there.
Definitely. I mean, there's 3 million shows, 50 million episodes, and more every day.
I mean, who has the time to figure out which ones are the best podcasts?
We do. That's who. What's up, guys? I am Alicia Renee.
And I'm Dax Holt.
And we are your hosts of Pod Sauce, a podcast discovery show.
Look at us as your podcast concierge.
We do all the work for you. We listen to the shows, review them,
pick the best episodes, and interview the hosts.
Pod Sauce. Let us help you find your next binge. Tell them where to go, Dax.
Go to podsauce.com.